Yep.
Okay.
You need to put your mouse on this PDF. That's all.
Yeah,
In the specific window.
which I've done, and I've got displayed right here, right now. I mean, stuff you can buy and verify.
Yeah, but we're not displaying.
Uh,
For media operation working group, not giving.
no, so click here on this. Let me get rid of this.
Yeah. You go this chest.
Oh,
MOPS channel, whatever. Click there. Confirm the selection. And here. And then the ticket, but you need to leave your mouse on the screen.
so no browser.
The browsing, yeah, you need to be focused.
All going to be talking. All right, how we resolve the issue.
Outstanding.
So mine, that means that Clicker plugged into my MacBook when I joined the thing was able to advance the slides that you were showing on your computer.
Because it was in the app.
That's crazy.
No, it's app focus, not deck focus.
Yeah, but if somebody else joined it was in the app, they could advance the slides themselves too.
They would need the clicker. Okay. Welcome to the MOPS session. If you're here for ADD, don't worry, you are in the right room, but it's an hour before your meeting starts. There are pointers at the door. Are you suggesting you close the door? Sure, thank you. So I'm Leslie Daigle. I am one of the co-chairs of MOPS. Kyle Rose is with us remotely, and he has a cute cat that we might get to see again. And Glendine is the technical advisor for the group. So that's us. We agreed to split the 2-hour slot that we had originally had with the ADD working group because we've got far less agenda material than necessarily anticipated, and they have far more. So I'm anticipating we will get through our meeting rather quickly. I would like to thank David Lawrence Tail for being our meeting scribe. But please, anybody else, feel free to jump into the meeting notes and help contribute as we go. Do note well, this is an IETF meeting with all the IETF policies applying. I think you should be familiar with these by now, but do feel free to take a close read and delve into the ECPs that back them up. I can click, gosh. By now, since this is Thursday, you know that this session is being recorded, and do make sure, this is your reminder to please sign in using the MediaCo Lite client. And if you do use the main client for MediaCo, please do make sure you're not sharing audio and video. I think that's pretty straightforward. Yes, and here are other resources for anything else you wanted to know about this IETF meeting week. All right, we have an agenda. We have gone through the note well. We've identified our minute taker, and now is a moment for any bashes to the agenda. Any bashes to the agenda? Not seeing any. So the working group documents updates will be very quick. The media operations use case for an extended reality application on edge computing infrastructure document is now in IETF last call. Thank you, Eric, for pushing it through. And the tree DN document finished its working group last call and has been written up by the document shepherd. So that now is also on Eric's desk. So those are the updates on the documents. There's no particular need to delve into them unless anybody has particular questions. Not seeing anybody in the queue. So we were going to do update on other IETF work, chiefly on the mock work from a media perspective, but the Scone Pro BOF is at this time as well, and that's drawing a lot of our regular participants and the mock folk to it, so we weren't able to identify somebody to come talk here. So look for that on the IETF 120 agenda. So with that, we'll scoot right along to the industry updates. So first, I think you have these as one presentation, Glenn, so it will be a blended update from the Streaming Video Technology Alliance in general, and then a bit of a heads up on some new work that's being done at the SPTA in terms of looking at the growth of what we can call network application overlays, and an analysis of the implications and ramifications from this growing trend. This is just a heads up about some preliminary work so that you can look forward in the July timeframe to seeing a document from the SPTA outlining what their learnings are about the implications of the use of these technologies in streaming video. So that will be an interesting discussion then. So long story short, today is not the day for the bun fight. This is a heads up. And with that, Glenn.
All right. Get in the box. Oh, it's an X now. It's not a box anymore. We have an X, but it's still pink, so that's good. Well played. Hi there. I'm Glenn Dean. I'm with Comcast NBC Universal. For those of you from the UK, also Sky. So, you know, we cover a lot of video and we cover a lot of networking in my day job. And I'm also part of the Streaming Video Technology Alliance, where I chair the Networking and Transport Working Group over there. And I'm a technical advisor to MOPS. And, you know, MOPS being an operations group, one of the things we try to do here is to make sure that industry is connected back into the IETF and vice versa. So while I come over here and talk often about SVTA updates, or sometimes Sanjay Mishra will also come and talk about these things, who does CDNI stuff. We also go over there when we talk about to those guys what's going on in the IETF to keep everybody in sync. So highlights from 2023, SVTA did a lot of things. We put on every year a big segments conference. In fact, that just happened. If you missed it, it was in Denver in February, and we did it back-to-back this year with Mile High Video. And so it worked really well. It was a very good conference, a lot of good participation. Segments is an external conference, so if you want to talk about video and stuff like that, look for Segments 2025. Don't know where it's going to be yet, but it'll probably be in the springtime. And may or may not be co-located with Mile High Video. We'll see. But it's part of the ongoing operations outreach. So Segments is operationally focused on video. So a lot of the ways to think about what SVTA does is we're sort of like the NANOG, or an operations group that takes work from places like IETF, converts into operational stuff, and puts it out there for people to deploy, run services on. Then we collect feedback. We either deal with it in there or we bring it back to the IETF. And we do a lot of documents. We've also updated our document numbering scheme so that when you're now referring to us online, you won't have to have a URL that's got 5 million characters. It started out like a really simple thing, like, hey, let's just create a numbering scheme for documents. And as we all know from the IETF, that isn't so simple. So let me talk to you then about the big meaty thing for today. This is a thing that has been discussed at the SVTA. We had a meeting the week before IETF did Prague. SVTA met in Prague as well. We started a conversation where people started saying, we're finding operational impacts that are being caused by these overlay networks. An example of an overlay network would be Apple Private Relay. It's things that it's doing are causing some operational impacts to CDNs and video service delivery. And we're not trying to say that's a terrible service. We're trying to say there's some technical choices made there that impact some other technical choices made on the other place. And I'm going to go through a little bit of that today and give you a taste. For the purpose of it, what the SVTA is doing is we're having a discussion within that group about trying to catalog and capture in a document all of the various impacts. And as I go through these, you'll get a taste of some of them. We're trying to capture that so that ultimately we're going to come back either to the IETF, probably for Vancouver, and say, here's a new document with some operational concerns we have. Could we please engage with everybody here to talk through them and find out if there's new things we can do, new specifications, changes we can make, or other things, either in SVTA or IETF or both, to make everybody work really nicely together. So at the heart of all the conflict or the problems we're starting to see is that policies are changed on network overlays, right? So, and I'll show you a picture in a minute of a kind of policy we're impacting, but overall, it's the selection and the changing out of policies, whether it's a routing policy change or a DNS policy change where we swap out the DNS or other things. And ironically, that factor up against, for talking about this, against another BOF that's talking about secure network policy distribution, although on a slightly different topic and in a slightly different way. We're both talking about network policies and their impact to video delivery services and how we can make the applications and the video delivery service aware and understanding of the network policies and the changes that come along with them, in particular when network overlays are present in the delivery path. And so, as I said, routing changes are things that are starting to pop up and cause trouble. Protocol changes where we transfer, if you say you used to be coming for HTTP2, I'm going to convert you to HTTP3 and maybe fix you up later on. That can cause some problems. DNS changes where you're using DNS for directing clients successfully to better cache selection, and you suddenly come through an overlay and that information gets lost. That becomes a problem. And then address changes. If you go look at, there's a spec on that's being jointly developed between SVTA and CTA on tokens for tracking and managing sessions across different CDN instances. In that spec, they use a geo-hashed IP address as an identifier, which works really well when you're just on the regular internet. But now if I've come through a overlay network that has changed the address space for those clients, and then itself is also using a hashed IP address mapping, we start getting some conflicts, the kind of conflicts we might have seen years ago when we were going through double NATs. So same old stuff, just different technology.
Glenn, do you want to take comments?
Sure, Bob.
Quick question. You should be using v6 example addresses too for your DNS, not just v4.
They're hard to fit on the slide, but I agree with you. It's a good comment, Bob. As you know, I'm a strong supporter of v6, but they're hard to fit on a slide. So anyways, here is a very simple example of the kind of overlay scenario we're talking about. In this case, we have an application protocol, HTTP, that is being routed through a different routing policy than all of the other protocols on that same network from the perspective of the client. This is causing some obvious cache selection problems, potentially. It also causes problems where, and this is increasingly true in the professional media space, we care a lot about latency. We are spending lots of time and energy right now figuring out ways to measure latency. And it's not just end-to-end latency, it's end-to-end latency plus anything in between that suddenly causes latency to go up. So imagine you're watching a massive sporting event like there was an NFL game that was streamed on Peacock in the United States recently. We really care about the latency from all the clients to the CDN servers that are delivering that content. When things get in the way, that's a problem. And when our tools for measuring latency no longer follow the path that the application will be taking for the video service, we have a problem. Our tools are broken. They don't, and in this case, if, you'll follow the golden line there. That's the flow that the video traffic will actually take if it's on this particular overlay network. But if you notice up top, ICMP and traceroute and other things like that follow a completely different path. So very common latency measurement tools no longer work in this workflow. That's a problem. I don't have a solution today, by the way. I'm just up here telling you guys all the problems we're finding. The other problem we have too is very often these network overlays are invisible to the application. They will turn on and the application doesn't get notified, oh, you're in this environment. Now, a lot of people say, well, that's not really a problem. Well, think about it from the application standpoint. If I'm an application developer and I want to know what path my content's going to take, well, I may use ICMP or I may use a ping, right? With ICMP again, I may do a traceroute. I may do other things to find that path. And they're going to say, oh, you're going this way. When you actually start doing the video flow, you're going to go on a different path. This is, again, an example of the tools aren't keeping up with sometimes some of the more advanced networking choices we're making. And here's the cache selection problem highlighted. So on the bottom corner on the bottom left-hand side, you have two versions of the same application. One is doing video streaming using HTTP, and one is using video streaming using HTTPS. If I'm in an environment which only flows HTTP over an overlay, then I'm going to follow that red line. And you see I'm going to go up, I'm going to ingest it. This is a mask relay that I'm illustrating here. It goes up, gets ingested, gets unwrapped, comes back down. And I'm going to hit the transit is going to eventually go in the open transit. And I'm going to get the DNS, or sorry, the CDN cache that's on the open internet. Same video service also has a video cache on the access network. That's really what I want to hit because it's going to be the fast one, right? The blue line, the blue flow, where if I'm doing HTTPS in this particular overlay, which is Apple Private Relays behavior, is not going to flow up into the Apple framework. It's going to flow into the network. It's going to say, oh, well, you've got a cache right here, and it's going to connect me on the cache. So here's a difference in behavior on if the URL contains HTTP or HTTPS. I get very different behaviors of what caches ultimately get selected. And that could be for a couple of reasons. It could be a routing policy change. It could be that the DNS in the overlay network doesn't support eDNS 0. If my application and my workflows are making use of eDNS 0 for cache selection, a lot of the, like Cloudflare, for instance, doesn't support eDNS 0 information for cache direction. So that minor change has a big change implication to the video flow and the delivery path. And likewise, even at the application level, it doesn't know what's going on. And so if it tries to test and tries to figure out, it doesn't always get the right answer. So this then causes the problem of what cache do I get and what's my latency? What's my performance to it? Now, a lot of people say, well, we use these overlays for privacy reasons, and that's a good cause. In this case, though, it is the same user, the same account, ultimately going to the same video cache to a service that it actually has a login with, right? So the cache on each side knows who it's talking to. So other than the network paths taken, you get the exact same result. And on the bottom, it's HTTPS and it's quick. So quick is doing the security and the privacy part right there. So if you're on the network and you're trying to poke in and see what the guy's watching, you can't. Quick has already taken care of that. So it's not a big privacy issue necessarily, but it is a performance and it is a latency issue. Any questions on this? Anybody want to come up and tell me I'm wrong? Because we're seeing this in the wild and it's causing some real problems. So next steps, what are we going to do about, we found a problem, we found a series of problems. We're going to document them. We're going to tease them out, put them in a document so that people can understand them. So we can have a grown-up engineer-to-engineer conversation about what the impacts are. There's a partial list of the stuff we've already identified that is a problem. There's probably going to be more as we tease it out. But then we're going to come back to the IETF and say, here's some problems. So stay tuned, MOPS 120, I'll be back. And we're going to be probably doing some IDs and trying to get some engagement with other parts of the IETF on this very real problem that the operational community for professional streaming media is encountering on a daily basis. And with that, that's all I got. Any questions? This is the IETF. I'm used to getting yelled at, so somebody needs to get up to a microphone and yell at me about something that I got wrong.
Any questions about what Glenn has presented and/or any thoughts about other areas that should be explored in this vein?
Hi, Hitoshi Asada. So I think you don't care much about ICN, but I believe ICN addresses everything.
Yes, this is a non-ICN environment.
Right.
It's primarily an HTTP streamed using manifests. Is the delivery path that we're worried about here.
Okay, so you don't care so much about the different approach. So you definitely want to use HTTP.
Correct.
Okay.
We have hundreds of millions of clients deployed already, a whole industry based around this current technology flow. And I know ICN does offer some unique features, but the cat's out of the bag now. They're firmly entrenched in HTTP as a delivery path.
Just a side note, thank you, Eric and George, for using the queue tool. So people who would like to, not a problem, but just going forward, if anybody would like to speak, please do put yourself in queue. Thanks.
Okay, Eric Ving, the responsibility for MOPS. I think this document should at least be presented in MOPS. I say at least because maybe it should be presented in other areas as well. This is about media operation, right, clearly. And we know each other in the IETF, so we will make sure that we announce this draft as well to the relevant people.
And I forgot to mention one thing, and that is a lot of the people in this room probably work for organizations that are members of the SVTA. And so if you'd like to help write the document over there, your help would be very welcome too. Come see me afterwards. And if you're not sure if you're a member, look on the svta.org website. And if you want to become a member, I can make that happen too.
George Michelson, APNIC. So I really like this talk, and I think that you are talking about real problems, but I think that this will be a cross-working group conversation, because this is almost identical to things that arose naturally with IP and IP of any kind. So any tunnel exposing protocol, any overlay fabric, VPNs, global VPN, selection of CDN under VPN termination address, how do you expose the true address, ECS, client subnet marking in DNS, it goes into so many working groups that I don't think it's going to have a simple home. And purely from my own personal perspective, and in no sense to say don't do this, I think it will be extremely hard to terminate this. And the primary reason is because nobody actually knows how to talk about policy in a way which rationally terminates, because you need languages and meta languages to describe the infinity of policy capabilities, but you can't actually nail them down to the small set that rationally suit the use case. So I do think this is good work, and I really liked your presentation, but ...
And I think you're right. I think the challenge here is not to boil the ocean. And that's why narrowing it down to focus on a couple of the very specific things, such as CDN cache selection and that space, is probably the easy solution path here, because there is so much here. And I want to be clear, we're not trying to undo the privacy initiatives that the IETF has spent the last, 10 years developing. We're just trying to make sure that the workflows for other stuff work with them. So that's it. Thank you.
Nope. Warren, you're in queue.
You tricked me. You weren't at the microphone, Warren.
I actually dropped out of the queue, but
Okay.
I just kind of respond to like something that George had said. Yes, this is really nice because it's operational and it kind of fits exactly within the idea of this group. Like, these are the sort of issues we're working on, blah, blah, blah. So good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now am I really done?
And now I believe you're really done. In fact, I believe we are all really done. Any other business that people want to raise? Going once, going twice. All right. Thank you all. And those who are staying for ADD, I think you have a few minutes of rest, and the rest of us are going to scurry over to Scone Pro. All right. Thank you.
You have 38 minutes to get a coffee or go to Scone Pro, but be back here for 10:30 because we're going to have some great conversations.
And we stay in the same meeting, correct?
No.
No. It's a separate meeting.
Yeah.
But that fire's up at 10:30. So. All right.
Ah. Deeply envious. Deeply, deeply envious.
So you will be the only initiator, I guess.
No. Glenn's going to stay for his working group.
Oh, he's going back. He better be coming back.
It's right there.
Not yet. Oftentimes we try to get one in advance, but